Treat this lecture as a revision strategy, not memorization or rote learning. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Megha Discourse, and in today's video we are going to cover the chronology of literature from 1900 to 2000. And this lecture is extremely important because we are not just listing the text and dates. Along with chronology, we will also connect major works with their authors and relate them to previous year UGC NET and other competitive exam questions. So wherever required, we will also discuss important points related to the books and the writers. So please do not look at this lecture as a difficult chronology or confusing chronology. Instead, try to change your way of studying or thinking. Think this particular work is written by this author. If you remember even one work or author, you can easily eliminate options and solve MCQs in the exam. So treat this lecture as a revision strategy, not memorization or rote learning. We are revising British, American, Indian and other post-colonial literature together in a single sequence. So relax, enjoy the process and let us begin our today's lecture. Here is a slide in which we have completed 1901 to 1915 works, and before commencing, you watch this video and revise all the major works. So in 1901 we have Kim by Rudyard Kipling. It is adventure novel set in colonial India. We have the themes like imperialism, identity in this work, and there is a famous character Kimbala O'Hara, okay, who was the part of great game narrative. And you know what, that Kipling got Nobel Prize in 1907. He was the first English writer to have so. Then we have Burden Brook in the same year, written by Thomas Mann. Thomas Mann is an important writer as he won Nobel Prize in 1929 for this novel. In this novel, we found decline of elite German family, in which Thomas Mann explored capitalism, tradition, and modernity theme. Then we have Three Sisters. It is written by Anton Chekhov, very important writer, and he was known as the pioneer of modern psychological drama. Okay, this play is about unfulfilled dreams, time, and inertia. We have major character like Olga, Marsha, Irina in this work, and there is a famous line to Moscow, which is very important. Now, in 1903, we have The Ambassadors, written by Henry James. Henry James is the same person who wrote A Portrait of Artist, and this novel is based on moral awakening and self-realization. We have Lambert Strather, the most important character of this work, and it is based on psychological realism. Then Man and Superman by George Bernard Shaw, and it is based on evolution, marriage, and Superman idea. Famous scene Don Juan in Hell in this work, which asked repeatedly in exams. George Bernard Shaw got Nobel Prize in 1925. Then we have In the Shadow of the Glen by James Finch. He was the major figure of Irish literary revival. And this work is one-act Irish play focusing on female freedom and rural Ireland. And you can see this is the example of early Abbey Theatre play. Now then we have Even the Seven Woods by W.B. Yeats. Actually it is a poet collection in which his mind shift towards symbolism and Irish myth. That's why he was the member of symbolist movement. This is the transitional work in Yeats' poetic career, and W.B. Yeats got Nobel Prize in 1923. Okay, there are some major poems written in the poetry collection. We have The Souls of Black Folk, written by W.E.B. Du Bois. He was the foundational figure of African American text. This is a sociological and literary essay on African American identity. And you can see there is a concept of double consciousness. It asked directly and repeatedly that who has given the concept of double consciousness, then it is W.E. Du Bois. Okay. Now, Abbey Theatre was founded. It is the National Theatre of Ireland, and it promoted Irish drama and identity. And W.B. Yeats, James Finch, Lady Gregory, they were associated with Abbey Theatre. Then the important work we have Nostromo by Joseph Conrad. It was a political novel about imperialism and moral corruption. It set in fictional Latin American country like Costanguana, okay? And Conrad, he was the master of modernist narrative technique. The Golden Ball by Henry James. First we read about the ambassador, now the Golden Ball. So the Golden Ball is on marriage, betrayal, moral ambiguity. It is symbolism of the cracked golden ball. We have Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie. It is a fantasy play novel about eternal childhood, and we have Peter Pan, the famous character in this work, and Captain Hook as well. And then we have the Cherry Orchard by Anton Chekhov. First we have done this work, Three Sisters, now this work. And this play symbolizing end of aristocracy in Russia. It is the example of classic of modern tragic comedy. And their orchard means social change. Now we have Riders to the Sea by James Inge, and it is actually one act play based on tragedy, struggle against nature and fate. And we have Moria, the famous character in the Riders to the Sea, and it is rooted in Irish peasant life. So the first work we have read about the James Inge is In the Shadow of the Glen, and now this work, Riders to the Sea. In the next, we have 1905, Where Angels Fear to Tread by E.M. Foster, very important work. In the whole chronology session, you will find the works which are related to PYQs or which are important one or which was awarded by some major awards. So Where Angel Fears to Tread is written by E.M. Foster. It's based on cultural clash between England and Italy. We have theme of emotions and convention in this work. And we have The Golden Threshold by Sarojini Naidu. She was the Nightingale of India. It is poetry collection celebrating Indian life and womanhood. It is very, its style is lyrical and musical. So keep it in mind. They both are our PYQs as well. Okay. Then we have The Man of Property, written in 1906 by John Galsworthy. John Galsworthy got Nobel Prize in 1932. And first novel is the Forsyte Saga trilogy. And in The Man of Property, we have Soames Forsyte, the main character, and this Man of Property is the part of the Forsyte Saga trilogy. We have Puck of Pook's Hill by Rudyard Kipling. And before this work, we have read about the work Kim by Rudyard Kipling. Okay, Puck of Pook Hill is based on linked historical stories for children. Actually, it is a children's work, and it blends fantasy with English history. Okay, and in the same year, we have Samuel Beckett, William Emerson. This is the birth year of William Emerson, who wrote 7 Types of Ambiguity. 1908, we have A Room with a View by E.M. Foster, and this is a romance and self-discovery work. And we have Lucy Honeychurch, the famous character in this work. Before that, we have read about the work Where Angels Fear to Tread. The second work in the same year, we have The Magician by W. Somerset Maugham. The novel actually inspired by Aleister Crowley, and it explores occultism and manipulation. Now, What Every Woman Knows by J.M. Barrie. This is a comedy about marriage and female intelligence. You can find feminist undertone beneath humor. And in 1908, we have Gloria Levi-Strauss, the birth year, who was proponent of structuralism, and we have Simone de Beauvoir, who wrote The Second Sex. Okay, so these are our works in 1908. Then in 1910, we have Clayhanger by Arnold Bennett. It is Bennett's roman set in industrial England, focuses on middle class life and realism. Then Howard's End by E.M. Foster. It means only connect. The important phrase about this work, we find conflict between money, culture and human value. It is major Edwardian novel. Now we have Gitanjali, written by Rabindranath Tagore, the most important work, but it is in Bengali. Language. It is devotional poetry, and he got Nobel Prize in 1913 for this Gitanjali in English language. And then the work The Spirit of Romance by T.S. Eliot. It was a critical essay on European poetry. You can say it was the example of early modernist criticism. Then in 1911, we have Under Western Eyes by Joseph Conrad. So Joseph Conrad has wrote Nostromo, and then Under Western Eyes. It is revolution, betrayal, moral isolation based work. You can say psychological political novel. Then The White Peacock by D.H. Lawrence. It is the first novel by D.H. Lawrence, and it was our PYQ. In the question, they have given the works of D.H. Lawrence in chronology. So if you remind the first and the last work or the important works, then you can easily arrange them in chronology. So The White Peacock is the first work by D.H. Lawrence. It is based on nature, emotion, and example of early realism. And in the same year, we have Dennis Williamson, who was born. He was American dramatist. In the same year, we have William Golding. He got Nobel Prize in 1983 for Lord of the Flies. He was actually allegorical novelist. In 1912, we have Contemplation, written by French Kafka, and he presents the word, and he coined the term Kafka's novel. And it is short prose based on anxiety and alienation. There are some important works written by French Kafka. We will cover it in detail. Then we have Milestone by Arnold Bennett. It is based on social realism, middle class value. Okay, and a fine example of Edwardian novel. Now we have Pygmalion by George Bernard Shaw. It is example of class and language satire. We have character Eliza Doolittle in Pygmalion. Now I told you about the Gitanjali. in English language, and it was renamed as Songs Offering, and it is spiritual poetry, got Nobel Prize for this. Now Sons and Lovers by D.H. Lawrence, the second work. First we have The White Peacock, now Sons and Lover. It is autobiographical, mother-son bond, in which we have Oedipus complex. Okay, it is psychological realism. Now we have Millie by Catherine Mansfield, short story writer. Basically she is a short story writer. It is short fiction, modernist sensibility based, and it focuses on inner life. Then A Boy's Will by Robert Frost, first poetry collection by Robert Frost. He got Pulitzer Prize for this work. Then we have Albert Camus, who was born in 1913. He was absurdist philosophy proponent, and he got Nobel Prize in 1957, and he was the same person who coined the term absurd. Now in 1914 we have North of Boston, Robert Frost's second poetry collection, in which you find the important poems like Mending Wall, etc. And it is a dramatic monologue based collection. Then we have Das Images. It is Ezra Pound anthology of imagist poetry, or it is based on free verse, clarity, precision. Okay, now 1915 we have The Valley of Fear by Arthur Conan Doyle. This is actually Sherlock Holmes novel. In our previous lecture we have done about the Sherlock Holmes, the major works written by Arthur Conan Doyle. He invented this character Sherlock Holmes, like A Study in the Scarlet. Okay, now it is a crime and secret societies. It is based on crime and secret societies, and you all know about this by Sherlock Holmes. Then we have The Metamorphosis by French Kafka again, and it is an example of absurd existence and alienation. Like you have seen the movies or the serial in which a man and woman turn into monkey. Okay, there is a movie as well, and so in The Metamorphosis, George Sansa is the important character. He turns into an insect. Okay, so this is what the idea of this work. Then now we have The Rainbow by D.H. Lawrence. It is generational novel based on sexuality and growth, and it was banned for obscenity. And Of Human Bondage by W. Somerset Maugham. We have a major character, Philip Carey, in this work. It is his semi-autobiographical work. Now we have The Voyage Out by Virginia Woolf. It is her first novel, The Voyage Out. It is based on it is the example of early feminism. It begins Woolf's modernist life. Now the major work, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock by T.S. Eliot. It is modernist poem and based on alienation, isolation, modern disillusionment. And T.S. Eliot got Nobel Prize in 1948. Now in this year we have Khushwant Singh. So you can relate, like with Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, we have Khushwant Singh and Arthur Miller. Okay, Khushwant Singh is famous for Return to Pakistan, and Arthur Miller is for Death of a Salesman, and he got Pulitzer Prize. And Roland Barthes, who is known for Death of the Author. Okay, so this is about our 1901 to 1915, and let's have a look. So in this work, first we have so far as a major writer is concerned, we have first George Orwell, who was born in 1903. Then we have Pablo Neruda 1904 and Graham Greene, they both are in same year. So George Orwell, Pablo Neruda, Graham Greene. And then we have Mulk Raj Anand in 1905, and his first work published 1935, that is The Untouchable. Okay, so you can remind before 30 years he was born, and after 30 years he wrote that work. Then we have William Emerson and Samuel Beckett got 1906. Now we have Simone de Beauvoir in 1908 and Claude Lévi-Strauss. So Simone de Beauvoir, Claude Lévi-Strauss is in the same year. Graham Greene, Pablo Neruda in the same year. Now we have Dennis Williams and then we have Dennis Williams in 1914 and Albert Camus in 1913. Okay, then we have in 1915 Khushwant Singh, Arthur Miller and Roland Barthes. So writer of Death of a Salesman and Death of the Author, they born in same year. So you can say first George Orwell, then Pablo Neruda, Graham Greene, and then we have Mulk Raj Anand, Simone de Beauvoir, Claude Lévi-Strauss, then Dennis Williams, and later Albert Camus and Khushwant Singh, Arthur Miller, Roland Barthes. So this is our the chronology. And we have Gitanjali in Bengali language. In 1912 it was translated into Songs Offering in English language, and in 1913 he got Nobel Prize. Okay, so these are some important works. So the first we have the Journal of Negro History by Carter J. Woodson. He was a very important writer. It was the academic journal documenting African American history. It was the foundational text of Black studies, and you can say it was the precursor to Harlem Renaissance. Very important work. Then we have the Portrait of Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce. It was Consul Roman work, and it tells the story of Stephen Dedalus' artistic awakening. It is based on modernism and stream of consciousness. Then we have Mountain Interval, the third poetry collection by Robert Frost, for Boysville, then North of Boston, and now Mountains Interval. It is based on philosophical depth, and he got 4 Pulitzer Prize for these poetry collections. Okay. Now we have Easter 1916 by W.B. Yeats, important work, and in which he says a terrible beauty is born. Okay. Now in the same year 1916, Pulitzer Prize now started. Okay, so it is prestigious American award for journalism and literature, and it was won by Robert Frost, Arthur Miller, Ernest Hemingway, and so many. So in 1917, we have The Shadow Line by Joseph Conrad, not by Amitav Ghosh. Till then, it is a psychological novel about moral responsibility. It is based on traditional modernist narrative. And we have The Job by Sinclair Lewis, PYQ. It is a satirical novel on commercialism and women's work, and Sinclair Lewis is the person who got Nobel Prize in 1913. Then we have Prufrock and Other Observations by T.S. Eliot. It is actually modern poetry collection in which you find that love song of J. Alfred Prufrock as well. It introduced modern disillusionment, urban alienation, and fragmentation. So in 1915, we have The Last Song of J.F.L. Prufrock, and in 1917, we have the collection Prufrock and Other Observation. Now, in the same year, we have The Wild Swans and Cool by W.B. Yeats, the third poetry collection, the third work by W.B. Yeats. It is symbolist poetry based on time, loss, and aging. And here, swans means recurring symbol. Okay. Then we have Abraham Lincoln, written by John Drinkwater. It is the biography of Abraham Lincoln. It is verse drama on leadership and democracy. Now, in 1919, first work we have The Moon and Sixpence by Megha. He was a very important writer. It is based on artist and the society's behavior. It is inspired by Paul Gauguin. Okay, and we find obsession and creative freedom in this work. Then Seva Sadan by Munshi Premchand, based on social reform, and it tells about the women's suffering and social hypocrisy. Then we have Night and Day by Virginia Woolf. First he wrote The Voyages Out, then Night and Day. It explains the modern sensibility. Now we have Amrita Pritam, who was born in 1919, and Doris Lessing. She is a very important writer. She wrote The Golden Notebook, which is very important, and she got Nobel Prize in 2017. She is actually feminist writer and post-colonial writer. And in the same year we have J.T. Salinger, who was writer of post-war alienation, famous for The Catcher in the Rye. So you can say in 1919 we have 3 major writers: Amrita Pritam, Doris Lessing, and J.T. Salinger. Okay, so far as the work like Night and Day is concerned, it is only just new. While they will give in chronology or they will give in options, then you should know, yes, this is the work by this particular writer. You do not have to read about this work in detail. 1920, we have The Mysterious Affair at Styles by Agatha Christie. She is a spy writer, you can say, and she has invented the character Hercule Poirot and Miss Marple. The both characters are very important. Okay. In the same year, we have The Rescue by Joseph Conrad. It is adventure novel, colonial morality, and you can say it is the last of Conrad's Malay novel. Okay. Now we have In Chancery by John Galsworthy, the Forsyte Saga. The first we have Man of Property, now the In Chancery. Okay, and then we have This Side of Paradise by F. Scott Fitzgerald, who is the writer of modernism. He propounded the theory of Judge A's youth and disillusionment. Then we have Women in Love by D.H. Lawrence. It is based on psychological and sexual relationships. You can say it is companion novel of the Rainbow or sequel of Rainbow. Okay. Then we have Main Street by Sinclair Lewis, Small Town America, critique on Small Town America. And then we have Hugh Sylvain Mowbray, the work by Ezra Pound. It is modernist long poem, and it explains about the imagism. Okay. So in this here you have to know about The Women in Love by D.H. Lawrence and about The Rescue. Okay, now we have 1921, in which we have Memoirs of Midget by Walter de la Mare, who was symbolist writer. It is based on fantasy realism and inner consciousness. Then Chrome Yellow by Aldous Huxley, satirical novel on intellectual society. And Monday or Tuesday by Virginia Woolf. Look at the works of Virginia Woolf. You know all the famous works, but yes, these are very important, so as the title is concerned. Okay, it is short story collection based on stream of consciousness. Now we have 6 Characters in Search of the Author by Luigi Pirandello, very important work by the French writer. It is based on meta theater. Okay, and it is foundation of absurd drama, and Luigi Pirandello, he got Nobel Prize in 1934. Now we have Michael Robarts and the Dancer, the collection, poetry collection by W.B. Yeats, in which he has symbolic poetry, mysticism, and philosophy. Okay, in 1922 you will find the Criterion magazine, literary journal by T.S. Eliot, and he promoted modernism through this magazine. I will upload a short tomorrow on the important journals as well. Okay, so stay connected for it. Now we have The Beautiful and Damned by F. Scott Fitzgerald, Moral Decay of Judge Age Elites. It is based on Moral Decay of Judge Age Elites, and it was companion to The Great Gatsby. Okay, then we have Ulysses by James Joyce. It is based on Stream of Consciousness and One Day Narrative. It is landmark of high modernism. Then we have Babbitt by Sinclair Lewis. It is satirical realism and critique of middle class conformity. Now we have The Garden Party and Other Stories by Catherine Mansfield. The Garden Party is short story by Catherine Mansfield, very important. In this collection, she wrote psychological short stories based on modernist interior focuses. Now we have Jacob's Room by Virginia Woolf. Okay, A Voyage Out, Monday or Tuesday. Now Jacob's Room. It is based on fragmented narratives and the war's impact and the impact of war. Now we have 1922, The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot. 1915, we have The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. And 1922, The Wasteland. So you can see in chronology you have arranged it automatically. Wasteland is based on fragmentation, myth, despair. It is core text of modernism, and T.S. Eliot got Nobel Prize in 1948. And in the same year, with Wasteland, we have Philip Larkin, who was born. So you can see with Wasteland, we have Philip Larkin, and with Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, we have Arthur Miller, Roland Barthes, and Khushwant Singh. Okay, so in 1923, we have The Shadow of Gunman by Sino Casey. It is Irish revolutionary drama and based on Abbey Theatre play. Then we have Saint John by George Bernard Shaw. We have Joan of Arc as a modern heroine, and earlier I told you he got Nobel Prize in 1925. Now, Tulips and Chimneys by E. Cummings. It is experimental typography and based on free verse. Then we have New Hampshire by Robert Frost, the fourth collection based on nature and regional identity, and it got Pulitzer Prize in 1924. Started from 1916. Okay. Now we have W.B. Yeats, who got Nobel Prize in 1922 for his poetry contribution. Okay, so in 1923, the major thing you have to know about the New Hampshire and W.B. Yeats. So Robert Frost, all poetry collection chronology is very important. Now in 1924, we have Passage to India by A.M. Foster, where Angel Fears to Trade, very important. And then we have a Passage to India by A.M. Foster. It is colonial. It is based on colonial tension of East and West. There is key ideas of friendship, racism, imperialism, which explained by M. Forster very well. Now we have Billy Bird Sailor by Herman Melville. It is based on innocence and authority. It rediscovered the modern relevance. And then we have Juno and the Peacock by Sino Casey. And Peacock is actually peacock. It was deliberately termed as peacock. It is tragic comic play based on Irish family drama. And it is, the main idea is on political realism. Now Desire Under the Elms by Eugene O'Neill, who wrote A Harriet, and this is Greek tragedy influence based on psychological realism, and he got Nobel Prize in 1936. Then The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. He was American Dream Illusion. His work is based on American Dream Illusion, and in this work there is a green light, was symbolism of modernism. Okay, so F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote The Great Gatsby. Now we have In Our Time by Ernest Hemingway. It is his short story, and it is based on iceberg theory. Earlier I told you about the iceberg theory in my previous video. Okay, so depth is important. It is not necessary that what is on the surface, what is inside makes sense. Okay, so it is based on modernist minimalism, and Ernest Hemingway got Nobel Prize in 1954. Now we have Aerosmith by Sinclair Lewis, and it is based on scientific idealism and commercialism. Okay, and this work helped him to earn Nobel Prize in 1930. Then we have The Painted Veil by Megha. It is based on marriage, betrayal, and redemption. Okay, and the title is very symbolic, taken from Dante. Then we have Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf in 1925. It is based on one day narrative, and inner consciousness can be seen, feminist modernism. Now Zora Neale Hutchinson, around of Harlem Renaissance. She wrote Colored Truck, based on black community colorism. Okay, now we have The Hollow Man by T.S. Eliot. It is based on spiritual emptiness, hollowness, emptiness, and it is based on post-war novel. Then we have The New Negro by Alan Locke. It is Manifesto of Harlem Renaissance. Just keep it in mind. The Manifesto of Harlem Renaissance is The New Negro. The Manifesto of Romanticism is Lyrical Ballad, and it is on black cultural self-assertion. So you will find these important work in 1915 to 1925. Let's have 1926 to 1935. In 1926, George Bernard Shaw Nobel Prize. Yes, he got Nobel Prize in 1925, but he denied. and later then he accepted the prize, and he was awarded in 1926 for his idealism and humanity in drama. He wrote Pygmalion, St. John, Man and Superman, etc. Then in the same year we have The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie, in which she has presented revolutionary detective style. The famous character he invented is Hercule Poirot. Okay, more than you can say 30 plus novels she has the character, more than. Now we have Soldier's Way by William Faulkner, the first novel by William Faulkner, and The White Peacock is the first novel by D.H. Lawrence, and A Voyage Out is the first novel by Virginia Woolf. So it was the first novel based on post-war one disillusionment. Sometimes they give statement-based question in which you will find a one statement, it is on post-war one or post-war second. So have little idea about the works. Then we have The Sun Also Rises, important work by Ernest Hemingway. It is based on Lost Generation, and the important character we have Jake Barnes, and it introduced iceberg theory, modernism. Now The Plumed Serpent by D.H. Lawrence. So we have read about the works of D.H. Lawrence, The White Peacock, Sunset Lover, The Rainbow, and now The Plumed Serpent and more one. Okay, the setting of this novel set in Mexico. It was based on pagan revival and leadership power. You can say this is based on D.H. Lawrence experimental phase. Now we have The Weary Blues by Langston Hughes, and this work is based on Harlem Renaissance idea, and you can find the blues and jazz influence in this work. Now Allen Ginsberg was born with the work Plumed Serpent and The Sun Also Rises. Okay, Allen Ginsberg, the writer of Big Generational Poet. Famous work he wrote Hall. Now in 1927 we have Man Without Women by Ernest Hemingway. It is a short story collection written by Ernest Hemingway based on isolation, masculinity, silence. You will find minimalism, modernism in this work. Then we have America by French Kafka. Okay, just look at the spelling of America. There is a K, that is Kafka's novel, and it is also called The Man Who Disappeared. Okay, there is Alienation and Modern Society. Now Benighted by J.B. Priestley. Just keep the name of this work. There's a film, The Old Dark House, based on this work, and it is a psychological thriller. Now To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf. First he wrote Mrs. Dalloway, then To the Lighthouse. It is based on Ramsay family, and there is a Billy Bricosse who was a painter. And now we have poems Penny Each by James Joyce. It is personal lyric poetry, and it explains the emotional introspection of our writer. Now 1928 we have The Last Post by Ford Madox Ford. It is the final novel of Parade and Tetralogy. So look at the all works of Parade and Tetralogy. Sometimes the question came like, which is not the part of this trilogy or tetralogy? Okay, so for that just keep it in mind. Now Point Counterpoint by Aldous Huxley. It is novel of ideas, intellectual debate based, and it influenced musical structure. Now we have Lady Chatterley's Lover by D.H. Lawrence. It was banned for obscenity after The Rainbow. We have character Connie and Melor in this work. Okay, and then we have Orlando by the biography of Virginia Woolf. It is based on gender-filled fantasy, and it is inspired by Vita Sackville West. Okay, so Mrs. Dalloway, then To the Lighthouse, now Orlando. Now The Three Penny Opera, the most important work by Bertolt Brecht. It is based on political musical drama. We have character Mac the Knife, and it introduced epic theater and elation effect. Now West Running Brook by Robert Frost. It is poetry of love and unity. Okay, so this is the collection. Next collection. Now we have Alan Sedito, was born in the same year. So The Three Penny Opera, Alan Sedito. Okay, and Alan Sedito is known for Saturday Night and Sunday Morning. And in the same year we have Edward Albee, who wrote Who is Afraid of Virginia. Then Maya Angelou, who wrote I Know Why the Case Bird Sings, the repeated play by you. Okay, 1928 we have Lady Chatterley's Love, Orlando, Three Penny Opera, all poeted works, and Alan Sedito, Edward Albee, and Maya Angelou. Okay, now 1929 we have Death of a Hero by Richard Eglinton. Just keep the name in your mind. Then The Sound and the Fury by William Faulkner, very important work. The first, it was based on Southern Gothic modernism. Now The Man Within by Graham Greene. It is on moral conflict, the man within. So you will find moral conflict. And then we have A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway, very important work, in which you will find Frederick Henry, Catherine Barclay, based on war and tragic love. Landlord's Word by Sinclair Lewis. Just keep the name in your mind. Then we have The Story of My Experiment with Truth, the autobiography by M.K. Gandhi, written in 1929. So The Sound and the Fury and A Farewell to Arms and Gandhi's The Story of My Experiment, they are in same year. Then The Goodbye to All That by Robert Graves. It is war memoir. Okay, now we have A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf, and it argues women need money and space to write. It is her feminist essay. Then Joyce Osborne with A Room of One's Own, who was the writer of Look Back in Anger. In 1930, we have John Masefield, who got Nobel Prize, Poet Laureate of England, and he celebrated sea poetry. Okay? Then we have Sinclair Lewis, who got Nobel Prize in 1930, first American Nobel Laureate. Okay? And then we have The Murder at the Vicarage by Agatha Christie. It is the first novel in which she invented Miss Marple. Okay? And in this work, she presented Harriet Couple, and this work is Miss Marple. As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner, the important work. The sun also rises, and now As I Lay Dying. It is on Bunron family. Now Cakes and Ale by W. Somerset Maugham, satire on literary hypocrisy. It is a semi-autobiographical work. Then we have Horoscope by Samuel Beckett. It is poem on philosopher Res Descartes. Okay, and it is based on early absurdist thinking. And for this, he later got Nobel Prize in 1969. Now we have Jacques Derrida and Ted Hughes, Harold Pinter. They all are in same year. Okay, so have mnemonics like Jacques Derrida, who wrote Deconstruction, Ted Hughes, who was Poet Laureate, and Harold Pinter, who is known for The Birthday Party. They all are in same year, and with that we have Chinua Achebe, Things Falls Apart. So in 1930, we have two Nobel Prize, John Masefield and Sinclair Lewis, and As I Lay Dying is very important. Then we have Jacques Derrida, Ted Hughes, Harold Pinter, Chinua Achebe. Okay, now in 1931 we have The Waves, okay, by Virginia Woolf. Just keep the name in your mind. Then we have Morning Become Electra by Eugene O'Neill. Okay, and he got Nobel Prize in 1936 for this work. Now Toni Morrison was born with Electra, Morning Become Electra, and Toni Morrison. Now in 1932 we have Scrutiny by F.I. Lewis. This is based on Lewisite criticism. It is the general and PYQ of our paper. Now in 1919 it is part of USA trilogy, and these are our USA trilogy written by John Dos Passos. Okay, now we have Steamboat Train or Orient Express by Graham Greene, the important work. Then we have Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, dystopian future based work, and it coined the term dystopian fiction, later used by George Orwell, Margaret, okay, in the work The Handmaid's Tale. Now with the Brave New World, there is a V.S. Naipaul, okay, and with the Electra we have Toni Morrison, and with V.S. Naipaul we have Umberto Eco and Sylvia Plath. Okay, so try to connect the fact with the other one. Okay, so with the Brave New World we have V.S. Naipaul, and with V.S. Naipaul we have Umberto Eco and Sylvia Plath, who is not brave and commits suicide. Okay, so in 1934 we have Tender is the Light by F. Cole Fitzgerald, based on psychological decay. Burmese Days by George Orwell. The first work of George Orwell was Burmese Days, so keep it in mind. It is MPT, imperialist novel. And with Burmese Days we have Sol Soyinka, who was Nobel Prize, who got Nobel Prize in 1986. Now in 1935 we have Mulk Raj Anand. I told you before 30 years, that is in 1905 we have Mulk Raj Anand was born, and in 1935 he wrote Untouchable, in which the story of Baka is explained. Then we have Swami and Friends with Untouchable. There is a Swami and Friends. Okay, so Swami ko touch nahi karna, Friends ne aisa bola hai, so you can link with that. Okay, now written by R.K. Narayan. It is based on Malgudi, and you can say from Swami and Friends Malgudi series was begun. Then we have Murder in Cathedral by T.S. Eliot. Okay, so you can relate. Then Swami says not to touch his friends. If he touch, then he will be murdered. Okay, so this is some mnemonics. I made it. Thank you. Now we have Edward said in the same year. So Edward said to Swami that don't touch my friends. If you touch them, then you will murder in the cathedral. Okay, so this is our 1936 to 1955. So the first work in 1936 we have Absalom by William Faulkner, and this Absalom is taken from Bible. You can say it has biblical title. Okay, this is on Tom's Suchpen and the burden of past on him. Okay, now we have The Annihilation of Caste PYQ by P.R. Ambedkar. It is radical critique of caste system in India. Now in 1937 we have The Bachelor of Arts by R.K. Narayan. After Swami and Friends we have The Bachelor of Arts. It is Binduck's Roman set in Malgudi, and we have character Chandran in this work. By Stonebeck, Of Mice and Men. It is novella of friendship and shattered dreams. There is a character George and Lenny. Okay, now we have Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hutchinson. Key text, it is important work of Harlem Renaissance based on African American women's search for identity. Okay, and the character is Janie Crawford. Now we have Three Guineas by Virginia Woolf. She has written so many work. Okay, the important work Three Guineas, it is based on feminist pacifism. Okay, and Companion to Room of One's Own. So both are feminist play. In with Three Guineas we have Ngugi wa Thiong'o. Okay, so in three gems, in one which we have Ngugi wa Thiong'o, and he advocates writing in native African language. The important point about Ngugi Thiong'o, and he wrote A Grain of Wheat. Now 1939 is the time of World War, and in first we have the Kenyon Review founded by John Crow Ransom, and the Criterion by T.S. Eliot, the Scrutiny by F.R. Lewis. With the Kenyon Review we have Phenogram Wig by James Joyce. It is based on high modernism. Now we have The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck, Pulitzer Prize in 1940. It is based on migrant workers during the Great Depression era. Now there is a family, Joad family. Okay, now we have Happy Valley by Patrick White, for which he got Nobel Prize in 1973. It is based on Australian identity. White is an important writer. Now in 1940 we have The Power and the Glory by Graham Greene after Stumble Train. The important work Power and Glory, read this work, in which we have Whiskey Priest, who was the protagonist, and it is based on Catholic idealism. Now, For Whom the Bell Tolls by Ernest Hemingway. It is the play based on Spanish Civil War novel, and we have character Robert Jordan in this work. Now, the question is, from where the title is taken? Okay, just comment down. Now, we have Native Son by Richard Wright, 1940. We have Native Son. And the character Bigot Thomas in this work based on racial injustice in America. James Coetzee, he was born in this year and he got Nobel Prize in 2003. He was very important writer. So in 1940 we have The Power and Glory and James Coetzee from For Whom the Bell Tolls and Native Son. In 1945 we have The English Teacher, written by R.K. Narayan, Swami and Friends, then The Bachelor of Arts, and now The English Teacher by R.K. Narayan. It is third Malgudi novel. Now in 1945 we have Animal Farm. You can relate that your English teacher told you to write an essay on Animal Farm. Now we have 1946 in which we have The Iceman Cometh by Eugene O'Neill, very important work and very confusing work as well. And this is based on long, intense psychological realism. Okay, and The Iceman Cometh, it is based on American Dream or disillusionment. Okay, and the title is very symbolic and significant. So have a look on this work. Now in 1947 India got freedom, and with freedom we have All My Sons Jitne Bacche Hain, all released in Arthur Miller, written by Arthur Miller, and this is based on moral responsibility after war. Okay, because this is the war time. And with this we have A Streetcar Named Desire. So after independence all have desired that all the sons will be freed. We have 1949. In 1949, 1984 is written. That is George Orwell's work, in which Big Brother is watching you, Big Brother is looking at you, and we have Newspeak. So you will relate this work with Big Boss, 1949. Now we have The Cocktail Party by T.S. Eliot. Okay, first he murdered in Cathedral, then he wrote The Cocktail Party. And now we have The Death of Salesman by Arthur Miller, who was born in 1915. This work is based on the character Willie Loman, and it got Pulitzer Prize in 1914. And then we have The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir. Second Sex is the foundational feminist philosophy. She wrote that woman is made, she is not born. It is gender based. Now 1951, The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, in which we have Holden, the main character. It is based on teenage alienation. Now 1952, The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. It is based on struggle and dignity. We have character Santiago on this work, and he got Nobel Prize and he got Pulitzer Prize in 1953 and Nobel in 1954. Now we have Martha Quest by Doris Lessing. It is first novel of Children of Violence. Now we have The Mousetrap by Agatha Christie, based on murder mystery. So all the works of Agatha Christie is based on murder, mystery, thriller, okay, spy, okay, and it is the longest running play. Now East of Eden by John Steinbeck. It is based on biblical Cain and Abel motif, Cain and Abel, the character in Bible. And now we have 1953, in which we have Crucible by Arthur Miller. Okay, so the first work by Arthur Miller, it is based on anti-McCarthyism philosophy. Okay, and Salem, Witch Trials Allegory can be seen. Now The Private Life of an Indian Prince by Mulk Raj Anand. Just keep the work in your mind. It based on decline of princely state. The Adventure of Foggy March by Saul Bellow, it is picaresque novel, and it got National Book Award. That's why it is very important. Now Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett. Theatre of Episodom, we have Alameda Restoration, Pojo Daki, and it is on the meaninglessness of existence. They are waiting for Godot who never comes, and the important work. So Waiting for Godot is written in 1953, the major year. Have the Crucible. Okay, it's very crucial to wait for the court. Now 1954, we have Lucky Jim in Kingsley MS by. Now in 1954, we have Lucky Jim by Kingsley MS. It was based on Angry Young Movement. The Lord of Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. The Lord of Rings. Now Lord of Flies by William Golding. And Lord of Flies, for this work he got Nobel Prize in 1983. It is a boy on island and it is on human slavery. There are two groups. Okay. Now we have The Mandarins by Simon de Beauvoir. First he wrote The Second Sex in 1949. Now The Mandarins. It is on intellectual responsibility and existential fiction. Now we have Nectar and Sea by Kamala Markandeya. We have character Rukmani in Nectar and Sea. It is post-colonial realism story and based on rural poverty in India. Now 1955, The Inheritors by William Golding, the first work. The important work by William Golding, it is allegorical fiction and evolution and violence can be seen. Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, it is the part of trilogy written by Tennessee Williams, and we find family conflict and repression in this period. There is a family conflict. We have character the Big Daddy and Brick on this work. It got no Pulitzer Prize. Now The Less Deceived by Philip Larkin. This is the collection written by Philip Larkin, poetry collection based on post-war disillusionment. So in this slide we find major important work. 1956. 1956 we have That Uncertain Feeling by Kingsley MS. Okay, and first you wrote Lucky Jim. Now by That Uncertain Feeling, it is related to Angry Young Movement. Now Seize the Day by Saul Bellow, important one, which you have character Toby Wilhelm. It is actually novella on personal failure. Long Days Turn into Night by Eugene O'Neill, for it is autobiographical family tragedy work for which he got Pulitzer Prize in 1957. Anger by John Osborne, in which we have Jimmy Porter character. Okay, so in 1956 we have the major work Seize the Day, That Uncertain Feeling, Look Back in Anger, and with that we have Amitav Ghosh. Now in 1957 we have Room at the Top by John Bryan. It is based on Angry Young Man Movement. Boss by Patrick White, very famous work by Patrick White. First he wrote Happy Valley, now Boss, and won Nobel Prize in 1973 for this work. And The Entertainer by John Osborne. So John Osborne, first he wrote Look Back in Anger, and now he wrote The Entertainer. So look at the sequence. Then The Hawk in the Rain by Ted Hughes. Okay, it is poetry collection by Ted Hughes, who is the husband of Sylvia Plath. Similarly, we have in 1958 Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. We have Saturday Night and Sunday Morning by Alan Silito. We have character Arthur Seaton in this work. It is based on working class rebellion. 1959 we have Middle Street by West Naipaul, the short story written in Trinidad, and it is colonial marginal life based story. And with Middle Street we have the caretaker. So there should be caretaker of every street. So the caretaker of Middle Street, and written by the caretaker by Harold Pinter. It is absurdist drama. We found theatre of absurd and menace in this work. Then The Lion and the Jewel by Holtz-Yonka, the most important work, and Holtz-Yonka got Nobel Prize in 1986. It is African comedy. And The King Drum by Gunter Grass, very important work, very important. It is the part of Dengin trilogy. Okay, and this is the PYQ. We have character Oscar in this work, and it is based on magical realism and post-war guilt. Gunter Grass, he got Nobel Prize in 1919. So you can say in 1959 we found a caretaker for Middle Street because of Lion and Jewel, and this Lion and Jewel, they were in Tin Drum. Okay, so this is our works in 1959. Now in 1960 we have The No Longer at Ease by Chinua Achebe. First he wrote Things Fall Apart, and this is the sequel of Things Fall Apart. It is based on corruption and colonial education. And with this No Longer at Ease we have To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, based on racism and injustice. Okay, we have character Atticus, and Harper Lee got Pulitzer Prize for this work in 1961 in the next year. Then we have Rabbit Run by John Updike. Rabbit Run is a series of 4 and 5 works. It is very important work, and he got Pulitzer Prize for most of the works. Okay, so whenever you find a work from Rabbit, then just find this work is written by John Updike. It is based on suburban elation, and there is a character Harry Rabbit Angstrom. Now in 1961 we have Catch 22 by Joseph Heller. Okay, and this in this work he coined the term catch-22. It is black humor and anti-war fiction work. And with catch-22 we have the Stone Angel, by Margaret Lawrence. It is on aging and memory based work. Both are written in 1961, and in 1961 we have A House for Mr. Bishwas, the important work. You can say the favorite work of UGC NET paper, and it is written by V.S. Naipaul, in which he is search of identity and home. I think he brought 2 or 3 times home, and every time he was looted. So V.S. Naipaul got Nobel Prize in 2001, and in the same year we have The Man-Eater of Malgudi by Arkin Ryan. Simplest way, Malgudi, Arkin Ryan. And we have The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie, Muriel Spark. Remember the name of the work? Okay, Most Brodie, Muriel Spark. Then we have Happy Days by Samuel Beckett. First, he made us wait for the waiting of Godot. Now he says happy days are coming. Okay, so it is absurdist based on absurdist despairiness. We have character Winnie. And then we have Girish Karnad Yayati, the first work written by Girish Karnad, and Yayati, it is based on existential choice and responsibility. Okay, now we have Arundhati Roy with Girish Karnad work. There is Arundhati Roy. Now Cat and Mouse by Gunter Grass. Okay, it is part of Denging trilogy. First we have to read about the work Tin Drum. Now there is Cat and Mouse. Okay, so drum mein we have Cat and Mouse. In 1962 we have Life at the Top by John Bryan. It is sequel of A Room at the Top. So top both are by John Bryan. Now we have The Reverse by William Faulkner. He got Pulitzer Prize in 1963 for this work. It is comic picaresque novel. Okay, now The Golden Notebook by Doris Lessing, important work. It is on feminism and mental breakdown. Fragmented style, can you see? And now The Who is Afraid of Virginia Woolf by Edward Albee. He got Pulitzer Prize in 1963 for this work. It is on marital cruelty and illusion, absurdist realism. Now we have John Steinbeck, who got Nobel Prize in this year for the work like The Grapes of Wrath. Picture from Bruegel and Other Poems by William Kellogg Spear. He got Pulitzer Prize after his death, that is posthumously. It is based on American everyday's life. Okay, so this is in our 1962. So you can say the important work Who is Afraid of Virginia Woolf and John Steinbeck got Nobel Prize, and The Golden Book, both are very important. 1963 we have Dog Ears by Gunter Grass, the final novel of Denging trilogy. First he wrote The Tin Drum, then in the drum we have Cat and Mouse and Why They Are Hiding Because of Dog Ears. So this is Gunter Grass trilogy. And in the same year we have The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. Okay, her most of the works are collected in the poem collection, and this is his semi-autobiographical work, and his most controversial work is Daddy. Okay, then we have The Feminine Mystic by Patty Friedan. If you have not watched the video on literary theory chronology, then watch it. Now we have William Carlos Williams, who got Pulitzer Prize for the work Picture from Bruegel and Others poem. 1964, Arrow of God by Chinua Achebe. Think Fall Apart, Arrow of God, and Longer at Ease. Okay, so these three are very important work by Chinua Achebe. And in Arrow of God we have A Tragic Priest is Zulu. Okay, now Her Joke by Sol Bello, based on intellectual crisis and in Latin form. Then Tughlaq by Girish Karnad. After Yayati we have Tughlaq. It is based on Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Now The Wits and Wedding, the poem collection by Philip Larkin. It is movement poetry. Okay, the important collection. Then The Mandelbaum Gate by Muriel Spark. Just remind this name. Okay, The Mandelbaum Gate. Now 1966 we have The Crying of Lot 49 by Thomas Pynchon, the postmodern writer, and it is based on entropy and communication. Wild Sargasso Sea by Jane Rice, prequel of Jane Eyre. The important thing about this work, it is the prequel of Jane Eyre, and we have the voice of Bertha Mason in this work. Okay, now in 1967 there's a lot of works, the important and a major year. First we have The Magic Toy Show by Angela Carter. It is feminist gothic fantasy based work. Now 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, in which he found the term magical realism. It is on Buendia family, and he got Nobel Prize in 1982 for this work. We have The Mimic Man by V.S. Naipaul. Okay, the three works are The Magic Toy Show, then 100 Years of Solitude, and now The Mimic Man. After that we have The Vendor of Sweets by R.K. Narayan. Then we have The Grain of Wheat by Ngugi wa Thiong'o. All works are very important. Now we have Silence, the Court in Session by Vijay Tendulkar. It is based on gender oppression and hypocrisy. And then we have Of Grammatology by Jacques Derrida. It is foundational text of deconstruction. And A Delicate Balance by Edward Albee. After Who is Afraid of Virginia Woolf we have A Delicate Balance. First he said to afraid, and then he said have balance. And he got Pulitzer Prize in 1967 for this work. It is absurdist realism. So there is a magic toy shop 100-year-old, and in which men were mimicking the vendor of sweets. Okay, आलू ले लो, गाजर ले लो, ये मिठाई ले लो, वो मिठाई ले लो. Then they will get, and in return they will get grain of wheat. Because of their noise we said silence in this court, And with this, we come to know that balance, a delicate balance, is mandatory for grammar. Okay, so you can make your own mnemonics. I will make my own mnemonics. Okay, now it's up to you whether you can remind it or not. Okay, but I can. Now we have Cecil de Louis, who became poet laureate in 1968, and he was known for his clear and accessible poetry. He won the public image by Murrell Spark. Okay, it explores the difference between image and reality. We have The Edible Women by Margaret Atwood. She is the, a marvelous writer. Okay, and she, there's a protagonist, Marian McPain. It is based on second wave feminism. She explains the consumerism and identity of female. So The Edible Women is very important. Then we have The Four-Gated City by Doris Lessing. Okay, it is the final novel of Children of Violence series. This is a series written by Doris Lessing. Okay, now we have The Slaughterhouse Five by Kurt Vonnegut. It is anti-war novel, and we have character Billy Pilgrim, and he coined the phrase "so it goes." Very important, PYQ है इसमें हमारा. Then we have the poem I Know Why the Caged Bird Sing by Maya Angelou. Okay, it is autobiographical memoir. And Samuel Beckett got Nobel Prize for Theatre of Absurd for Waiting for Godot, and he was the pioneer of Theatre of Absurd. Okay, so in 1969 we have The Edible Woman and I Know That Why Caged Bird Sings with Slaughterhouse. Now in 1917 we have The Blue Sky by Toni Morrison, very important work based on racism and beauty standard. We have Pecola Brenda, who has blue eye but dark color. Vivisector by Patrick White, important work. Okay, then we have Sexual Politics by Kate Millett, feministic based work. 1971 we have Morris by M. Foster. There are so many works by M. Foster. Now I think you can easily guess that this work is first and second, and it is written by this particular writer, and it is based on the homosexual love in Edwardian England. Now Rabbit Redux by John Updike, first Rabbit one, then Rabbit Redux. So John Updike wrote Rabbit Tetralogy. So this is the second novel of Rabbit Tetralogy. Then In a Free State by V.S. Naipaul. Okay, he got Booker Prize for this work. Then Pablo Neruda got Nobel Prize for, okay. 1973 we have Sula by Toni Morrison. First she wrote The Blue Sky, now Sula. It is based on African American community life. Then Patrick White got Nobel Prize in 1973 for The Vivisector, The Vows, Happy Valleys, etc. The Seas of Krishanpur by J.G. Farrell, the important work based on Indian Rebellion of 1857. It is actually the colonial satire, and he got Booker Prize for this work. Okay, The Seas of Krishnapur. Now 1974 we have The Diviners by Margaret Lawrence. Don't confuse with Margaret Atwood. Okay, so The Diviners by Margaret Lawrence. It is based on female artist and the memory. It is metafictional work. Now Travesties by Tom Stoppard. So Tom Stoppard wrote many important works, and Travesty is one of them, and it is based on Dadaism, and it is meta theatre work. Then we have The Conservationist by Nadine Gordimer. He got Booker Prize for this work, The Conservationist. It is based on apartheid and land ownership. Now in 1975 we have The Humboldt's Gift by Saul Bellow, and he got Pulitzer Prize for this work. Then we have Heat and Dust, wrote by Ruth Pawarjwala. It is based on parallel narratives of India and England, and she got Booker Prize for this work. So in 1975 first we have Heat and Dust, and then Humboldt's Gift. In 1976 we have Dancing Girls by Margaret Atwood, and it is a short story and based on female displacement and identity. And then Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison, So Blue Sky, Sula, and Song of Solomon. Then we have The Monkey King by Timothy Moore, important work. It is based on cultural displacement. Life by David Malouf, philosophical fiction based on identity and language, imagination. Okay, and in which you will find the poet Ovid. He was exiled. Still Rise by Maya Angelou. This work is definitely of black feminist poetry, and it explains the civil right. Okay, then we have Orientalism by Edward Said. So you can find that with Edward Said Orientalism we have The Monkey King, Imaginary Life, and I Rise. Okay, and The Sea by Iris Woodrock, for which he got Booker Prize winner. It is based on obsession and ego. Now in 1779 we have The Bloody Chamber by Angela Carter, and it is feminist retelling of fairy tale, gothic and magic realism. Some version of patriarchy can be seen in this work. And light has gone. Okay, we have The Darkness Visible by William Golding. Okay, so this is based on spiritual struggle. Now we have Burger's Daughter by Nadine Gordimer, and it is very important work. It is based on South African realism and the apartheid resistance. Okay, in 1980 we have Waiting for the Barbarians by Jim Coetzee. It is based on empire, power, silence, and he got Nobel Prize in 2003. And Jim Coetzee is very important as well. Then we have Rites of Passage by William Golding, and Rites of Passage is the first novel of C trilogy. So look at the C trilogy, and he got Booker Prize for this work. In 1981, the most important work, Midnight Children by Salman Rushdie, for which he got Booker Prize. And we have the protagonist Salim Sinai. He was born at Indian independence, okay, and it is the example of magical realism. Then Rabbit is Rich by John Updike, the third novel of Rabbit trilogy, and this work got Pulitzer Prize. So first and third work got Pulitzer Prize. Now we have 1982, The Colors Purple by Alice Walker. It is epistolary novel written in letter form, and we have characters Sally, and the life is very pathetic so far as Sally's luck is concerned, and it got Pulitzer Prize in 1983. Then we have Pale View of Hills by Kazuo Ishiro. He is a very important writer. This is his first work. It is based on psychological realism and Japanese British perspective. Then we have Sword Sweet by Timothy Moore. First he wrote The Monkey King and then Sword Sweet. There is a H, बंदर का जाने अदरक का स्वाद. So you can say बंदर का जाने मिठाई का स्वाद. So The Monkey King, Sword Sweet, both are based on Chinese immigrant family. Then we have Top Girls by Carol Churchill. It is feminist play and women in based of women and power. Okay, very important work. Now we have Gabriel Matthews, who got Nobel Prize for the master of magic realism, and Skidder's Ark by Thomas Kinley, important work because this got Nobel Prize, and it is Holocaust historical novel. So just remind this name that Skidder's Ark is written by Thomas Kinley. Now we have Life and Themes of Michael K by James Coetzee, and he got Booker Prize for this work. It is based on elation under apartheid movement. So James Coetzee, he was one of the major writers who got 2 times Booker Prize. Then we have Shame by Salman Rushdie. It is his controversial work, and it is political agri of Pakistan. Okay, then we have William Golding, who got Nobel Prize in this 1983 for the work Lord of Flies, allegorical work. Okay, now in 1984 we have Ted Hughes, who became poet laureate. Now in 1985 we have The Handmaid's Tale written by Margaret Atwood. It is dystopian feminist novel. And then we have The Bone People by Kelly Hull. It is on trauma, violence and healing. So all these, so in this slide we have major works which got Booker Prize or any award. Okay, that's why they are important. Now we have The Old Devils by Kingsley Amis, satirical novel on aging. Old Devils. Now Hol Soyinka, he got Nobel Prize in this year 1986 for the work The Lion and the Jewel, and major works. Now we have An Artist of the Floating World by Kazuo, in which we have unreliable narrator. Okay, and it is based on psychological realism. Now Anthills of Savannah. Now Anthills of Savannah by Chinua Achebe, the post-colonial African dictatorship work. It is based on political realism. And in the same year we have The Enigma of Arrival by V.S. Naipaul, 1987. Now in the same year we have Beloved, Toni Morrison. So you can make mnemonics like My Beloved is Arriving at Anthills of Savannah. Okay, and they are written in 1987. And for Beloved, Toni Morrison got Pulitzer Prize. And we have characters Sethi. It is based on trauma of slavery. Now in 1988 we have The Satanic Verse, the most controversial work by Salman Rushdie, based on migration and identity. Then we have Oscar and Lucinda by Peter Carey. It is on gambling, faith, chance. He got Booker Prize for this work, Oscar and Lucinda. And now in 1990 we have Possession, written by A.S. Byatt. It is on academic romance and Victorian past. Metafiction work है based on intertextuality. And who has given this term intertextuality? Give me the answer in comment section. Now Rabbit at Rest by John Updike, the final novel of Rabbit novel. It got Pulitzer Prize in 1991. So the 3 works among 4 got Pulitzer Prize. In 1991 Nadine Gordimer got Nobel Prize. And then we have The Famished Road by Ben Okri. There is a spirit child, Azaro, okay, based on magic realism. And in 1992 we have Derek Walcott, who got Nobel Prize. He is a Caribbean poet. He wrote work Omeros. Now English Patient by Michael Odedanji. It is based on war, love, memory, and he got Booker Prize for this work. Now in 1993 we have Remembering Babylon by David Malouf, based on colonial Australia mindset. Then Toni Morrison got Nobel Prize for his works like Believe It, Songs of Solomon, Sula, The Blue Sky. Okay, so these are some major works. The last slide we have, in 1994 we have the works like Under My Skin and by Doris Lessing. It is the first volume of Lessing's autobiography. Okay, and it is based on feminist of autobiographical writing over childhood, politics and communism in this work. Now we have the Three Tall Women by Edward Albee. Okay, Three Sisters is written by Anton Chekhov, and Three Tall Women is written by Edward Albee. And he got Pulitzer Prize for this drama. It is a play about a woman at 3 life stages. Now in 1995 we have Indian Ink by Tom Stoppard, in which we have Interweaves Colonial, in which he explains interweaves colonial India and modern England. So you can say we have art, imperialism, memory kind of ideas in this work. Now Seamus Heaney got Nobel Prize in 1995, and he wrote the poem like Digging, Death of a Naturalist. In 1996 we have the work Alice Grace, written by Margaret Atwood. It is a historical novel based on real murder case. So we have the protagonist Grace Marks. Okay, you can say it is an example of feminist historiographic metafiction. The Spirit Level by Seamus Heaney, poetry collection of grief and transcendence. Okay, and it is elegy for poet's mother. 1997 we have The God of Small Things, written by Arundhati Roy. This is her major works. She got Booker Prize for this work. We find caste, love, loss, trauma in this work. It is based on the family tragedy in Kerala. Then we have Harry Potter and the Philosophical Stone, and I know everyone knows about J.K. Rowling. Okay, and this is the character Harry Potter. And then we have Disgrace, written by J.M. Coetzee, and it is post-apartheid South African work. Now Gunter Grass got Nobel Prize in 1919. He was famous for Danger trilogy. Then Interpreter of Maladies by Jhumpa Lahiri, short story collection, in which she presents immigrant identity and loneliness, and she got Pulitzer Prize in 2000 for this work. And now the last 2000, in which we find The Blind Assassin by Margaret Atwood. It is a story within a story actually. It is based on memory, patriarchy, narrative truth, and it is metafictional work. And then we have When We Were Orphans by Kajo. This is the third important work. This is based on childhood loss and imperial past. Then we have Anil's Ghost by Michael Odentry. It is based on civil war in Sri Lanka. We find violence and archaeology truth in this work. All are very important, and you can find that When We Are Orphaned, We Are Blind, and We Believe on Ghost. So this is the mnemonics of the year 2000. And now let's have some PYQs. Okay, so first PYQ we have, which of the following won Booker Prize in 1997? So this is your first question. Alice Grace, Disgrace, The God of Small Thing. Obvious said The God of Small Thing, written by Arundhati Roy. Then we have Interpreter of Maladies. It got Pulitzer Prize and written by, so here is the options, and it is written by Jhumpa Lahiri. These all are our PYQs. Okay. Then we have, which of the following works is an example of historiographic metafiction, and we read that Alice Grace is important because it is based on Grace Marks, the important protagonist. The historiographic metafiction, this is coined by Linda Hutchinson. Now we have this fourth question, in which you have matched the following. J.M. Coetzee, who wrote this work. In the first column we have J.M. Coetzee, Margaret Atwood, Kajo, and Mikhail Odentry. In the second work we have this. Okay, so you have to give answer of this question in comments box. So this is our important questions regarding this lecture. I will try to make one more video in which we cover 2001 to 2025 important writers. Okay, so hence you will cover all chronology from 1516 to 2025 in just 5 videos. Okay, so do not take it as a burden. So bye bye.